Hey, what's up guys, it's Kelly. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing the repeat rewind book tag. If you find yourself enjoying this video, then please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, it really helps me out, and if you're new here and would like to see more of me, then please subscribe. So the repeat rewind tag was created by my wonderful, intelligent, creative friend Hannah from LadetteM, and I'll leave a link to her channel and her original video in the description. So Hannah in her video said that she loves a good tag, as do I, but the problem with a tag is all the questions are the same, which obviously is the point of the tag, or of a tag, but it also means that if you watch more than one video, you know, you're seeing the same questions time after time. If you're tagged by more than one person, you can still only do the video once, and honestly, by the time you've watched like 3 of them, you're kind of done. You don't want to see that video come up in your subscription feed anymore. So she wanted to create a tag where every person that did it would end up with a different set of questions, and also you could in theory do it multiple times and even you would end up with a different series of questions. So she put together the repeat rewind tag, and the idea is that you go to your repeat rewind playlist on Spotify or your most played playlist wherever you listen to music. Basically the core crux of this is that it has to be an automatically generated playlist. It can't be a playlist that you've curated, and you take the first 10 songs and you create prompts and recommend books based on them. Now the only rule is that you can't use a single artist more than once, which caused a problem for me because my repeat rewind playlist on Spotify is literally just Taylor Swift and like 6 musicals. So I went through all of those and then I was stuck because I needed a few more prompts. So I went over to my on repeat playlist, which is another automatically generated one, and I got a couple songs from there. So I haven't done this, I guess, strictly to the rules, but I did the best I could, okay? So let's get into it. The first song that came up for me was Where Do We Go From Here by Ruel, who is a recent favourite of mine. I discovered her through Shadowhunters. I would say probably like 75% of the songs on Shadowhunters are by Ruel, and she is amazing. She's got this like beautiful ethereal voice, and she sounds like a fairy. She sounds like Faye, and we love it. The song just gives me like angsty forbidden love vibes, so for this I went with A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. So A Discovery of Witches takes place in a version of our world where witches, vampires and demons exist. They are part of our world, they live among us without us knowing, obviously. And we follow Diana Bishop, who is from a long line of very powerful witches, although she's kind of eschewed that part of her life. She doesn't really practice witchcraft. She has no interest in practicing witchcraft. She just is a scholar. She just wants to study. She just wants to, you know, read old alchemical manuscripts. And it is the discovery of this ancient alchemical manuscript one day when she's doing research in the Bodleian Library that reopens this door to her past and invites pretty much all the witches, demons and vampires into her life. They all gather in Oxford because this is a manuscript that's been missing for centuries and everyone wants to get their hands on it. One such creature is Matthew Claremont, who is a vampire geneticist, and they just find themselves inexplicably drawn to each other, and this kind of inexplicable connection between them makes her trust him enough to share this manuscript with him, and they start working together to try to unlock it and decode it. And as they're doing that, their feelings for each other deepen and intensify, but relationships between these different factions of the like fantastical supernatural world are strictly forbidden. I normally describe this as being like Twilight for adults. It's definitely got that like insta-lovey feel to it, it's got the forbidden love, it's got the angst, and you know what? I'm trash for it. It's honestly crazy to me that I haven't read the second book yet because I enjoyed this so much, and it's just like you can't stop reading it. It's a thick book. It's almost 600 pages and I just flew through this because I enjoyed it so much. I tabbed it loads. It's a good time. All the angst, all the feelings, It is actually kind of a weird combination of insta-love and slow burn, because on the one hand, they have this like instant attraction and they very quickly are saying things where you're like, well, clearly you're in love, but very little actually happens physically. There are like a handful of makeout scenes sprinkled throughout the book. Matthew is a very traditional vampire. It's another way that this feels very Twilighty. So there's this like intense yearning, and he's very protective of her, and he's like, you're my whole world, but we're not actually dating because we can't date because you're a vampire, I'm a witch. It's just, there's a lot of angst, and we love to see it. Also, just like the vibe of the song matched the vibe of the book, and I could imagine them using the song in the Discovery of Witches TV show. So next we have London Boy by Taylor Swift, and I interpreted this as a fun romance between two people from different backgrounds. It works, right? And for that I've gone with Heretics Anonymous by Katie Henry. This is a YA contemporary, and we follow Michael, who is an atheist who gets sent to a Catholic school, and he joins this club called Heretics Anonymous, which is full of people who, for whatever reason, don't conform to the religious teachings that the school is teaching them. So we have Michael, who's obviously an atheist. We have a Jewish boy who's also gay. We have a girl who is polytheistic. We have a boy who is agnostic and is still kind of trying to figure out what he believes. And we have our love interest, Lucy, who is a very proper Catholic girl, but also is a very strong feminist and has some strong beliefs, like that women should be able to be priests. I've just been brought alcohol. How great is my life? And there is an incident in their theology class that causes Michael to encourage the rest of the group to go from just being a secret society to pulling these like secret stunts that exposes the school's hypocrisy. But eventually Michael goes too far and puts all of them at risk. So we have Michael, really, really firm atheist. We have Lucy, really, really staunch Catholic. And despite their very opposing beliefs and their very different backgrounds, they come together and they fall in love. And you know what? This book was so much fun. So, I don't know. I just got London Boy vibes from it, you know? Next I got Till I Hear You Sing, which is from Andrew Lloyd Webber's sequel to The Phantom of the Opera, Love Never Dies. And for this I went with a retelling of a classic, and I couldn't not choose Phantom by Susan Kay. This is, you might be able to guess, a Phantom of the Opera retelling, and I absolutely adored it. So this mainly focuses on Eric, who is the Phantom, and it goes right back to the beginning of his life, like the very beginning of his life, and him being born disfigured and his mother hating him, and all of these things that we get references to throughout the Phantom of the Opera, like the Punjab lasso and him being an artist and an architect. We see all of that backstory in this book. You might get some of that in the Phantom of the Opera too. I haven't actually read the book, I've only watched the musical, so I don't know how much of that backstory you get in the Phantom of the Opera book, but from what I understand, this book just expands a lot on Eric's history. Then we also see the timeline of events that happen during the Phantom of the Opera, and it follows quite a significant amount of time after that as well, going up to Eric's death and eventually Christine's death. I love the Phantom of the Opera. I love the character of the Phantom, and seeing all of this backstory and all of his, like, the history of his life and all of these experiences that shaped him into the person that we meet in the musical. It's just, this is a masterpiece. I loved it so much. My mum actually picked it up secondhand and told me that I should read it because I watched The Phantom of the Opera like every day for a week at one point in my high school career. If you are a fan of The Phantom of the Opera, I would highly recommend it. So Emmy, who has a channel that I just adore because she talks about classics non-stop, she's amazing and she has such good taste. Her favourite book of all time is The Phantom of the Opera, and she also really loves this book, so I feel like that's a pretty good, like, as much as I love it, I feel like her opinion on it actually matters kind of more because she loves the original source material and also thinks that this is a really good adaptation, retelling, prequel sequel kind of deal. So yeah, I can't recommend this enough. If you're a Phantom of the Opera fan and you need some more Eric in your life, find yourself a copy of Susan Kay's Phantom. Next we have Ramin Karimlu's cover of I Will Always Love You. Yes, the Whitney Houston / Dolly Parton song. It's a classic, we love it, and I love his rendition of it. He is my favourite Phantom. He's absolutely incredible. He has an amazing voice, and he's released a couple of albums where he covers songs from musicals but also popular songs, and he is just phenomenal. My favourite song of his of all time actually is he did a bluegrass cover of Anthem from Chess, which is one of my favourite songs from a musical of all time as it is, and just, oh my gosh, it is incredible. Go listen to it if you haven't, because wow. But since this is the song that came up, this is the one I need to find a prompt for, and I went with soulmates, characters who will always love each other. You can see I'm thinking very outside of the box with these prompts, and I've gone with The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. Now, I'm not going to tell you why I chose this book for this prompt, because spoilers, but if you know, you know. Next we have Turn It Off from the Book of Mormon, which is a super fun song about suppressing things and just turning your emotions off and not feeling anything. And I really struggled to find a book for this one. I was thinking like a character who suppresses their sexuality, maybe, because sexuality is quite a big focal point of the song. One of the characters just like turned off the fact that he's gay, and you know, now he's not gay anymore. Couldn't really find anything that fit that, and eventually I just went for a book where the character suppresses all feelings, and that is Less Than Zero by Bret Easton Ellis. I read this at the end of 2019 and adored it. It's very nihilistic, and I kind of felt empty for days afterwards. I just kind of wandered around feeling lost and like there was no point to anything in the world. I feel like this book isn't the perfect combination for the song, because I did want something that was fun, but also you can get away with things like suppressing your feelings but make it fun in a musical. It's a little difficult to do that in a book and have it work, so I just had to go with the one aspect of that. So in this book we follow Clay. He's 18 and he's a student who has come back home for his Christmas break, and basically we just follow him then going on a drug, booze and sex filled bender. It is a coming of age story, and it's just filled with partying and sex and hedonism and excess. You know what, I want to say it's a really good time, but it's not. It's really not. Like I said, I felt empty for days afterwards, but it was just so good. I thought it was amazing. And the characters in this book are all just trying to completely ignore their lives by constantly being high out of their minds, or completely wasted, or burying their feelings in sex. In a very tragic way, it totally works for Turn It Off. Next we have Anyway the Wind Blows from Hadestown, and I was quite surprised that this one ended up on the list, because it was the only Hadestown song on my repeat rewind playlist, and I've listened to it a couple of times, but if there was a song from Hadestown that I would have expected to end up on that playlist, it would be Wait For Me, because I listen to that all the time, so not really sure how that happened. But anyway, this song to me is just the story of Eurydice as she tries to find a place in the world that she belongs, and everywhere that she goes she just struggles to fit in. I looked for a book with a character that was kind of trying to run away from their past and also was struggling to find a place that they belonged, and I went with Heaven by Christoph Marzi, which is a YA book that I read a few years ago. Is it YA even? It reads like YA, but I think the characters are adults. It's a weird crossover, but I loved this book. So we follow David, who is a strange character. I mean, I adored him. He works in a bookstore. He lives like above the bookstore, complete book nerd, but also like instead of just using the road to get around London like a normal person, he walks over rooftops so that he can like be alone and in solitude and with his thoughts. It's very 2007. and we love it for that. And then he meets this girl called Heaven who says that she is in danger because these bad men have cut out her heart, but she's still alive. And the two of them go on this journey to figure out what happened to her heart, and where she comes from, and how the heck she is alive when her heart's been ripped out. It is a beautiful love story, and it looks at not belonging and figuring out where you came from and where you belong, and also about fate and if things are meant to be. And it's really good, and if you can find it, would highly recommend. Next I got the Dead Girl Walking reprise from Heathers, which we love. This song to me is all about like a character coming out of a toxic situation and being empowered by it and like going for what she wants. And for this I went with Notes from the Teenage Underground by Simone Howell. This is one of my favourite YA books probably of all time, and I've never heard anyone else talk about it. We follow Jem and her two best friends who are like the quirky outsiders, and they're like too cool for anyone else, and they decide to go underground for a year. So Jem decides to make an underground film. Myra, who's kind of boy crazy, is on the lookout for a boy without barcode. So that's like a boy that isn't generic and is like different and cool and as quirky as them. And no one knows what Lo has planned. She's kind of the most secretive, she's the coolest, she's the one that like everyone wants to be friends with. No one knows what she has planned. But Jem has always kind of felt like the outsider of the trio. She's always felt that Myra and Lo are a lot closer to each other than either of them are to her. And over the course of the book she just feels herself kind of more and more being left on the fringes of what they're doing. I just think that this book is amazing. It's a really, I think, important book for teens to read, because it does show that it's actually better to have no friends than to have toxic friends, and that as soon as you cut toxic people out of your life, you will start to thrive a lot more, and then you'll invite like the right kind of people into your life, and your life will be so much better. Next I got The Whole Being Dead Thing from Beetlejuice, and for this I went with undead characters, but make it a bop. And I chose Pride and Prejudice and Zombies by Jane Austen and Seth Grahame-Smith. Now, I know a lot of people who actually like Pride and Prejudice hate this. I am not one of those people. I love Pride and Prejudice, it's one of my favourite books of all time, but this was just so much fun. It literally is just Pride and Prejudice, but with zombies. So we've still got the hate to love romance of Lizzie and Darcy. They are both trained to kill zombies. We've still got Mr. Collins being feeble and weird and sad. We've still got the Wickham side plot, but there are also zombies. There is nothing about this book that is not great, except for the writing. The writing, not so good, but everything else about it, what a good time. Next we have In My Head by Maisie Peters, who is another person that I've discovered kind of recently, and I love her. She is amazing, and this is kind of about a girl not being able to accept that her relationship's over, which I looked for, couldn't find. So what I went for instead is someone who kind of is making up a relationship in their mind, and for that I went with The Go-Between by Lp Hartley. This is a coming-of-age novel about a young boy who goes to stay with his friend for the summer at their like magnificent English country home, and he begins to act as a messenger between Ted, who is one of the staff that like works the land in the manor house, and Marion, who is his friend's older sister, and he acts as this messenger between them, and he carries letters back and forth. The two of them are obviously in love, but it's forbidden because she's rich and he works for her, and this is like the early 20th century, so they can't be together. So Leo helps nurture their secret love, which he doesn't realise he's doing. He's just carrying these letters without realising what they say. All the time that he's doing this, he in his mind is falling in love with Marion, and he's kind of, every interaction that he has with her is, he kind of balloons in his head to mean a lot more than it does. And when he ultimately finds out the truth about the nature of Marion and Ted's relationship, it destroys him. I just loved this book so much. The writing is exceptional. The storyline I thought was amazing. It's not very plot heavy, but it's very character based, and it's all about the way that these characters grow and evolve and the relationships that they form with each other, and it's just so good. good. Cannot recommend it highly enough. It is one of my favourite classics, and I feel like it just doesn't get enough love. It's obviously not underrated, because like, a classic can't be underrated, right, if we're still reading it 100 years later, but I feel like as far as classics go, it's very underrated. And lastly, we have Human by The Killers, which is a song that I love, and for this I went with a book that deals with AI, because is it human? Or is it just a dancer? I've gone with Machines Like Me by Ian McEwan, which is a book that I adored, and this is about a man who comes into some money and he uses it to buy an atom, which is AI technology has progressed to the point where we've made like fully synthetic humans. They have a body and they can walk and talk, and you can like program a personality into them. So our main character buys one of these and he uses it as an opening to get to know one of his neighbours a little better. He invites her to come and like look at Adam and help him program in some of his interests and like some of his personality traits. It eventually leads to this weird kind of love triangle between the three of them, and it asks all of these questions about what makes humanity human and where do we draw the line, and if these synthetic humans can walk and talk and are progressing to the point where they can think for themselves and they can feel emotions, then really what is the difference between them and a living flesh and blood human? Highly enjoyed that book, would very much recommend it if you are interested in AI at all. It was just so good. Ian McEwan is such an exceptional writer. This is about asking these big questions about what humanity means, and it's about the relationship that these characters form, and really fundamentally, what does humanity even mean? So those are the 10 songs and books that come from my playlist, but then there is one more prompt, which is to go to the video of the person who tagged you, choose one of their songs that you don't know, listen to it, and make a recommendation based on that. So one of the songs that Hannah used was I've Got a Theory from the Buffy the Musical episode, and I love Buffy, but I haven't actually got to that episode yet, so I hadn't heard that song before. So I decided to go with that one. It's a good time, let me tell you. And for that I went with vampires, but make it fun, because that's really what Buffy is. And I've gone with Blue Bloods by Melissa De La Cruz. This series is essentially Gossip Girl meets vampires, like Gossip Girl with vampires. It's these very rich, elite New Yorkers who also happen to be vampires. So I really like the vampire lore in these books. The lore is that they are fallen angels and they actually live out like a human lifetime. So they are born, they live out a lifetime, and they die, and then they get reborn into another vampire family, and when they reach about 15 they start remembering all of their memories from their previous lives, and basically they have like a soulmate who in every lifetime they will come back to, and in every lifetime the soulmates will find each other. Our main character, Skylar Von Allen, is from a very old, very kind of revered vampire family, but her mother kind of brought them into disrepute by falling in love with a human, and Skylar is a half-blood. She's half vampire, half human, and this is kind of unprecedented. No one really knows what this means for her, no one knows what this means for like her lifetime, how long she's gonna live, if she'll be reborn when she dies, if she has a soulmate, because this is the first time in millennia that like a new vampire has been born. There's loads of angst, loads of drama, but also just they're a lot of fun. They feel like Gossip Girl, they feel like kind of rich, angsty YA contemporaries, but then they're also about vampires, and it's just, we love it. So that is my take on the Repeat Rewind book tag. I enjoyed this so much. I maybe didn't go like as creative with some of the prompts as I could have gone, but I think I recommended a pretty good stack to you guys. Lastly, I just need to tag some friends. So I'm going to tag Becca from Becca and the Books, because I think she has really good taste in music, and I think that there's also a lot of overlap in our tastes. and I'm interested to see what's on her most played on Spotify. Then I'm also going to tag Mary Jo Hedrick, Sav from Bookish Lifestyle, and Ali from The Chaotic Reader, just because I don't really know what music any of them are into, and I'm nosy and I want to know. Let me know in the comments what you would have chosen for any of the prompts that I gave, or like what some of your most played songs are, if we have like overlapping music tastes at all. Also, I'm trying to like expand my music horizons a bit, so feel free to leave me artist recommendations, or if you have done this video, then leave me a link because I'd love to go and watch it. Thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy, then please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you aren't already. In the description you'll find links to all of my social media. That's my Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Goodreads, as well as my blog. You'll also find links to my Patreon, my Redbubble, my Ko-fi, and my online store, as well as my Blackwell's affiliate link if you'd like to support me on any of those. But that's it from me today, and I shall see you all again very soon. Bye!
My life is grounded in